This is Professor Shoemaker, and it's a quick video here on functions in Excel. I'm not going to tell you just about functions. I'm going to tell you how to use them in the best way. So what we've got here is a data set that just has three numbers in it, 1, 2, and 3. What we want to do is sum up those values. Well, there's a lot of different ways to do that. The first one is we could just look at it and say, well, 1 plus 2 plus 3, that's 6, and then just type a 6 in here. That process is called hard coding. Hard coding means you type in a value when you could have written a formula to calculate it. Hard coding is bad news, and in this class will hurt your grade. Another way of doing the result is to write a formula, and everything else we're going to do here will not be hard coding, it will be writing a formula. So we could write a function like this, equals b4 plus b5 plus b6. Now, that uses a formula and gets the same result. Matter of fact, just looking at the two cells, you can't tell that I hard-coded one and used a formula for the other. The way to find out is to click into the cell. I can see up here in the input bar that there is a 6 here, whereas there's a formula here. One other tip. I typed in B4, B5, B6, but another way of writing a formula like this is just to type the equal sign. Let me clear the cell out first. Okay, type the equal sign and then point at the cell that you want, then type a plus sign, then point at the next cell, type a plus sign, and point at the third cell. That's nice in my mind because it cuts down on typing, and anytime I type, it's a chance to make a typo, so I don't like doing it. So both of those will get you to the same result. This is hard coding, this is typing in a formula. But this was identifying the cells by typing them in each individually, and if this data set was 200 items long instead of just 3, that wouldn't have been practical. So we can use the sum functions. The sum function works like this. I type in the word sum, and then I point to the cells I want, just like this, and I'm putting commas between them, and then hit enter, and I will get my 6. Now, that's one way of listing the cells, but it's not scalable, because if I had 200 or 2,000 cells, I couldn't type them all in. It would be crazy. So there's another way, which is to use what's called a range of cells. And that is where you list the first cell at the beginning of the range and the cell at the end of the range, and that's all you have to do. So let's try that. Equals sum. Now, I'm going to point at the first cell, B4, then I'm going to type a colon. Then I'm going to type at the last cell, point at the last cell. Notice when I did that, because I typed in the colon, Excel understands that I'm referring to a range, and it puts the marching ant lines around the whole range, so I can see B4 colon B6, and now I've got the same result. So, look, we've done this 4 ways now. We hard-coded a number, we typed in the cells, we used a sum function like this with commas between them, and then finally we used the range. Let me show you one other quick tip. I'm going to, on the keyboard, I'm going to press the control key and then the tilde. The tilde is the little squiggly line to the left of the 1 key and above the tab key on the keyboard. So control and then press tilde. And what happens is it shows you all of your formulas. So we can see the hard-coded 6 here and the formulas that we wrote before. It's a quick way of just looking at the formulas in your worksheet instead of having to type at every cell. To turn it off, you hold down control and press tilde again, and it puts it back to normal. Now let's think about what we did here. We got to the same result 4 different ways. The question is, which is the best of them? Which one's the better one? Well, the basic criteria I use is to think about whether a spreadsheet is brittle or robust. A spreadsheet that's robust will withstand changes to it and still give you the right numbers. A spreadsheet that is brittle, when there's some change in the worksheet, will break and it will start giving wrong numbers. Let me show you an example. I'm going to add a new entry into this data set by clicking on the 5 over here for the row number, then right-clicking and selecting Insert. That'll put a new row into the data set. And now I'm going to type a 4 here. So I've added a new entry into my data set, and let's see what happens to the results below. Well, this didn't change because we just typed in the 6. This didn't change because we identified the 3 cells we wanted to add up, and when we added a new one, it didn't care, it didn't bring it in. And by the way, I'm going to click here in the input box and watch what happens on the spreadsheet, just to show you what it's pointing at. It highlighted the B4 in blue, the B6 in red, the B7 in purple, and then it puts the same color box around the cell. So clicking up here can make it real easy to see where your formula is referring to. At any rate, this still gives us a 6 because when we added the new cell here, it didn't include it. Nor did this one change because here we listed every single cell. So when we added the 4 here, it's not a part of the list. But look what happened down here. When we used the sum range, Excel understood that if any new cells come into it or go away, then they should be added to the range. So our new cell got added to the range, and this formula is the only one that turns out to be robust. All of these broke when we added another cell in the range. Let's try another change. Let's take this cell and delete it. This row, I'm going to select on this and then select delete. I right clicked, and now this one gives an error because a cell that we had before doesn't exist anymore. The B5 is gone. This one gives an error. This one's wrong still. Only this cell here that used the range is still correct. So in this class you should always write formulas that are robust and will withstand changes to the spreadsheet, because in the real world spreadsheets change all the time. I'm going to put that cell back to get rid of the errors. I clicked on the undo button up here. Okay, there are a bunch of other functions that behave very much the way that sum does. There's an average function. And watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to paint the range by clicking and holding down the mouse button. And then I let go. I get my marching ants here. And I need a right parenthesis, but at this point if I just hit enter, Excel will add a right parenthesis for me. You can see that it did that. The min function returns the smallest number in a range. So let's put this range in. This should give us back a 1. The max function returns the largest number in a range. Let's try that. Then we have 2 count functions. The count by itself counts cells with numbers in them. So watch what I do here. If I do count and I select the range that includes the header up here for the first time, now I'm bringing in row 3. When I do that, I get a 4, because even though I have 5 cells in the range, only 4 of them, these 4 right here, have numbers in them. So count counts cells without numbers. In other words, you can include the header in a count function and it will ignore it. That's handy if you're going to add a new cell in the beginning up here ahead of the number 1, for example. Your count will always work. Count A is a little bit different. It counts cells that are not empty. So let's try count A. The A stands for alpha, by the way. Let's select that range. Hit enter. And notice it gives us a 5 because it simply counts cells that are not empty. It doesn't care if they're numbers or they're headers. So this is handy for counting any kind of value. Watch what happens when I come up here and delete the 4. Now it drops down, this comes down to a 4 here because that cell is empty and it counted 1, 2, 3, 4 cells that had values in them. I'm going to put that back by doing an undo. So there's a set of functions that behave very much like the sum function. Now a couple more points I want to make. Because these are very common functions that are used all the time in Excel, Excel has a built-in way of entering these functions without even having to type on the keyboard. So watch what happens. I'm going to put the cursor down here. I've got a data set of 4, 5, and 6. I want to sum them up. I can come up here to Ribbon on the Home tab, and right here is the Sigma button that's called Sum, and when I click on it, just like that, it puts a sum function in and it tries to find the range I want to sum, which are the cells just above it or maybe to the left. So it gives me the marching ants around the range. It's guessing is what I want. If I hit enter, then I get that sum function and I never had to touch the keyboard. You can do average as well. Instead of just clicking on the button now, I'm going to click on the little right triangle. That little right triangle here pointing downward. That means that there's something else, and if you click on it, you'll get a list, a menu. So I can pick average, count, min, max, and so on. I'm just going to click on average. So I got an average of the list just like that. Didn't have to type on it. That's all for this. We'll go over a little bit more in class.